down that camera and strap in. It's time for another episode of TOGCHAT Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news and tips, along with your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, it's Wednesday, so it must be time for our weekly photography chat. Thank you for joining me for another live edition on YouTube of TOGCHAT. As you know, my mission, even in this crazy time, continues to be to help photographers like you develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. Before we get going, let me just say that I hope all of you are remaining healthy, staying safe, and of course, practicing social distancing, right? Also, please do me a favor. How about two things? One, a thumbs up. Really easy to do, like right, down there. And number two, a share. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. You can go ahead and you can click that share button, or of course, I'm going to put the link here in the chat window. You can share the link, tog.chat/live. Facebook, Twitter, they're the fastest way to go ahead and get the word out. And of course, we've got people tuning in here right now from all over the world. So please take a minute, leave a comment. Let me know you're here. Let me know your name. Let's dig in, shall we? So first of all, I've got a super chat here already. JJ, thank you so much for the super chat. Great way to start the night. I really, really appreciate that. I want to just switch my screens around here so I'm ready to go. And I'm seeing a lot of people coming in here tonight. We've got Misha from Switzerland. I've got Alan from Denmark, Lynn from New York. I got another Joe from Michigan, John from Seattle. How you doing, John? I hope all's good out there. William in Ottawa, Theo in the Netherlands. I got Katie down in San Antonio, Texas. Man, and that list goes on. So very cool. Thank you for coming. I see some of you catching your first live stream live. That's awesome. So I have a few questions that are already lined up that came in through my Facebook group, and there's going to be plenty of time. So dig in. If you're here, how can I help you with your photography? What are you struggling with? What do you need to work on? What are you curious about? What questions do you have? All right, so let's hit a couple of these questions that came in early. We'll get those out of the way so the rest of you have some time to type and get your questions in there, and then we'll take it from there, all right? So I've got a question here from Christian. With Olympus cameras, what is the option to set the EVF or the back LCD screen to show what the picture will actually be as far as exposure and focus? Okay, so folks, this is a question that's important really for all mirrorless camera users. Obviously, the setting will be a little bit different for Nikon, Canon, Sony, etc. than it will be for Olympus. But Christian, it's called Live Boost. You want to turn Live Boost off. So let's see if I can hold this up to the screen here for you guys to see. You're going to go into your gear menu. Now, I'm on the EM1 Mark III, so it could vary on some of the older OMD cameras. But you are going to go to the gear and then D2. Let me see if I can get that in focus so you guys can see it. There it is. Live View Boost. All right. Once you arrow over on Live View Boost, you have three options. There's off, there is on 1, and on 2. You want to make sure that Live View Boost manual the green screen's taking that out, so I can't show you that part of it. But Live View Boost, manual shooting, you want it turned off. And that way you're going to see your exposure exactly the way it is going to appear in your finished file. Okay? Next one I have here is from Richard Bone. Another Olympus question. In Live Comp, and actually this is a question that is about an Olympus feature, Live Composite, but this actually applies to all light painting, so it's a good one to talk about. In Live Comp, when shooting a model, can the model leave the scene after the establishing shot is taken with the flash and then continue shooting the scene? As an example, shooting star trails or maybe wider light painting scenarios. Well, Richard, the short answer is it depends. So first of all, for those of you that don't know what Live Comp is, if you are an Olympus shooter, like Really, you don't know what live comp is? You need to. So I'll share this link. Last Thursday, in fact, here, let me give you guys a quick peek at this. Last Thursday, I did a live stream, for Olympus that was all about live composite. So if you want to check that out and learn a whole lot more about live composite, you should do that, okay? But Richard, the answer to your question, let me just go ahead and put that back up on the screen, is you can remove the model or the subject once you've got that initial exposure, provided that your star trails or whatever light painting you do does not go behind the model, right? If your stars or your light painting goes behind the model, then that will be recorded as new light. So it's not a matter of like once a pixel is used, it's never used again. It's a matter of if there's brighter stuff recorded, then it will overwrite the previous. So as long as you are setting the model up kind of in a dark area of the shot, so to speak, and you don't run the light behind her. A lot of people frequently ask me that. You've seen the light painting composites that I do for the portrait backgrounds, right? And a lot of people have asked, well, after your initial frame, could you move the model? And the answer is no, because as you see in those lights, I'm moving the light directly behind the model. So it would just draw through where the model is at that point, okay? All right, I think that's all our Olympus questions for now. Chris, using colored filters when taking images for black and white conversion. His question is physical filters or post-production modification? Well, I would say in today's world, assuming, Chris, that you are shooting digital technology, I would work with post-production. Certainly, there would be nothing wrong with shooting with the colored filters, except here's the challenge. You ultimately want to shoot raw, no matter what, right? It's always going to give you the best quality file with the most data to work with. So if you change your color settings in your camera to black and white or monochrome, whichever your system uses, your preview is going to be in black and white, your little JPEG preview in the camera, which means that if you're using a red filter, indeed, your blue skies will get really dark. A yellow filter, they'll be kind of dark. But in RAW, you're just basically skewing your colors all over the place. You're going to have a really weird looking RAW file, and you're not actually recording the benefits of those colors. In fact, what you would be doing is you would actually be changing the relationships of certain colors to other colors, which could actually make it really hard to do post-processing, and certainly could actually make it really difficult to be able to do a color version of that picture if you change your mind in the other direction. So given how digital technology works, I would say save yourself the money. Don't buy the colored filters and simply do it in post, because in Photoshop, Lightroom, and most of the other software that's out there, you have the ability, once you're going into black and white, to do the yellows, the blues, the reds, all that, and to be able to make your changes from there. So that would be my advice on that one. All right, I got one more here that came in early, and then we're going to get to these questions that you guys have here in the feed. So this is from Patrick. I would love to specialize in product photography and build a solid portfolio. Buying products to photograph them can be expensive. Oh, heck yeah, the idea is to get paid, right? Not to go buy them. In your opinion, Joe, is it a good idea to go to traders, or I think what he means, go to stores, and ask them to lend him products to photograph? What best advice would you give him to succeed in finding products? Well, so certainly if you can get someone to do that, Patrick, yeah, that's a great plan. I mean, if you can get somebody to loan you something so that you can go and photograph it and make interesting shots of it, absolutely. Indeed, as we've talked about numerous times with portfolios and marketing, you need to be able to show really good quality examples of whatever types of work it is that you want to do in order to get people to pay you to do it, right? So I would say option one, yes, go to a store or a trader and ask them if they would lend it to you. Option two is certainly, and I shouldn't say option two, I should, just to expand on option one, I am a big believer of several philosophies that apply to this. Philosophy number one, and this is something that my father taught me when I was very young. And when I was very young, I was very shy. So I didn't truly learn this lesson. And when I say learn it, meaning trust it and experience it, until I got considerably older. But that lesson was, you don't get what you don't ask for. And the worst thing that anybody can ever say is no. Those were two things that, as a shy kid, it didn't matter whether he was right or wrong. It didn't matter if it was good advice or bad advice. I just didn't have the guts to do either of those things, As I got older, I really learned that those are two very powerful pieces of advice, and they are two pieces of advice that today I live by. The worst that can happen is indeed somebody can say, no, that's it. So I'm going to ask. Certainly, depending on exactly what the product is that you are thinking about, you might even be able to do some kind of a barter where maybe maybe it's a product that a company makes. So maybe instead of a store, a trader, maybe we're talking about a manufacturer. Well, maybe you're willing to offer them a couple free photographs in exchange for them allowing you access to their products and to photograph them, etc. Keep in mind, folks, if you are in the position right now, and this is not going to work for everyone, but if you are in a position right now where you are trying to build your portfolio to be able to take that next step, to be able to go ahead and start charging and earning money, with as upside down as things are in the world, folks, let's just keep it real for a minute, especially for those of you that are making money or trying to make money. Once all of this lockdown and social distancing is done, whether that's a month from now, which is unlikely, or 2 or 3 or 4 months from now, it doesn't matter when it's done, the demand for photography is not just going to go poof and come right back like it magically never left. Photography, unfortunately, at pretty much all levels, will be one of the last things to be prioritized in most genres of work. Think about it. I mean, it just will. There's very little about what we do that is unfortunately mission critical for most places. So certainly companies that have new products or maybe launching new things, they may have a more immediate need. But for the most part, let's face it, this is going on so long. Even for like wedding photographers, there's been so many weddings that are getting canceled. There's going to be a rush for venues, and a lot of weddings that were going to happen are going to happen differently. And it's just, things are going to be crazy. The benefit for photographers who are potentially looking to build a portfolio is small businesses especially want the product photography, want the advertising images. They're not going to have the budget. So, there again is that barter. Maybe try and pick a small business that has a product or has a service that you can benefit from and, offer an exchange, do a barter. I'm a big fan. We don't do enough bartering in today's world. And that's just my personal opinion. I'm a big fan of, look, if we can barter for something and everybody is happy with the outcome, then gosh, why not, right? But so that would be my advice, Patrick, is, just keep asking places, keep reaching out to people. Remember, at the end of the day, it all comes down to providing value. If you can provide value to someone, then they are going to be much more likely to be willing and eager to assist you in what it is you're trying to do. Okay? All right, let's get back to the chat window here. I know I had some good stuff come in. From Jay Thomas, this came in early. And guys, we've got plenty of room for more questions here. So by all means, go ahead and type your questions in there. So Jay Thomas from Rome, Italy. So first of all, I hope everything is doing better for you there. Obviously, Italy, one of the countries that was hit hardest first with all of this. He says here that recently I've seen some of my images on websites that I have nothing to do with, or have released my copyright to those websites. I've emailed them and they have been ignored. This is a tough one. So it happens. It sucks when it happens. For me, I I tend to look at it in terms of what is the impact for me. I will always take steps to try to resolve the problem, but indeed, that's not always possible. Now, one of the things that I want to show you here, I want to share a website with you. I'm going to grab the link here really quick, and then I'm going to change my screen over. And I'm not going to show you the front page of the website. I'm going to show you my dashboard. So let's just go ahead and switch over to the web browser. The website, I'm putting it here in the chat window right now. It's called Pixsy.com. Pixsy, Pixsy.com. So this is essentially a subscription service that you pay for, right? There's a free version that it's helpful, but it's not gonna solve all of your problems. But they do a couple of things. So just to give you an example, and I just logged in. I haven't been in here for a few days, but I know I've received a couple notices. So if I click on not top matches. If I click on this one, online, here are images of mine that are being used without my permission for a website in Denmark, website in China, website in Russia, another website in Russia, another one in Russia, another one in Russia. Those Russians, man. Chinese, they've even put their own watermarks and logos on them. Now, the challenge is what's happened in most of these cases is these websites have gone ahead and they've literally copied an entire article off my blog, like literally the entire article. Denmark, from my past experience, will probably be an easy one to get resolved. Russia and China, it's hit or miss. What Pixsy does for me is they will allow me to actually automate a takedown notice that gets sent to the owners of these websites to request that they remove the images. It's an automated process. So if I click on this one as an example, here's the URL where my images are showing up. And this is actually, it's a clone of Amazon. And they're showing the images, which they don't seem to be loading at the moment. But I recognize parts of the page. They're showing the images, which indeed actually Olympus has permission to use. So in this case, I'm going to say it's approved use. I'm going to let it go. This one here, much different. Let's see if we can get it to load. So this is a page all in Chinese, and somewhere along here, and we may not even be able to find it because it looks like it's a blog. Yeah, it's a blog that had grabbed it at some point. So I know from experience it would take me hours to find it. So this is one where I would go ahead and I would send a takedown notice. By clicking on that link, okay, these are the images that I want removed. They've used the same images multiple times over. And then they will allow me to automate, in an automated process, file a takedown notice, which gets sent to them. Does it always work? No. I would say with countries like China and Russia, probably about 25% of the time it will work. The rest of the time, I could go ahead and I could try to, take more aggressive legal action, which is going to cost me a lot of money. It's not worth it. So at the end of the day, I kind of have to look at each of these and say, well, is it really having an impact on me? These particular ones, they're not. So I'm not that worried about it. So, that being said, that's where I would start. It is unfortunately not as simple as just, send a message or file a complaint, etc. Pixsy will also allow you and help you through the process of registering copyrights, at least for here in the U.S. If you want to do that, you can do that through them, etc. So, I find it to be a very useful site because it does a lot of legwork for me, saves me having to worry and be quite so diligent, about that process. So, question here from Bob. This is a kind of a good follow-up. Bob, you must not have been following me for that long. This is a question that is the subject of numerous Joe rants. The bottom line is no. Do not watermark your images, Bob. Okay? The reason why I say don't watermark your images is because watermarks are obnoxious. Okay? They are not going to prevent anybody from stealing an image. You can put a watermark of any kind on any image, and I will remove that watermark in about 15 seconds, hands down, no problem. Okay? The watermarks don't give you any legal protections. They do absolutely nothing. My backup to my argument, Bob, think of the most famous, most amazing, most iconic photographers that you admire. So no Joe Edelman stuff. I'm talking big names. Go to their websites. Look at their photography. See how many of them have watermarks. The way I always look at it, Bob, just like the images that I showed you from Pixie, do I have images that are worth stealing? I don't. Like, remember, stealing an image is breaking the law, right? So do I have an image that's worth stealing? The people that are going to take my images and claim them as their own, they're just desperate. And here's the stupid part. Even if they manage to use my image to get a job, if it was another photographer, they're not going to be able to do what I do. So they're just misrepresenting themselves. And if they get that job, they're going to fail, right? If it's a publication, like a magazine, the image on the web is not going to reproduce at high resolution because I load my images appropriately and properly for internet use. So I'm not putting full resolution images on the internet that somebody can grab and then go and print, high resolution magazine quality from. So it's really not a problem, right? Check this video, Bob, if you want to hear a little bit more detail about how I feel. I put the link in the chat there. It's an earlier TOGCHAT. I'll tell you all about my thoughts on watermarking. But yeah, trust me, don't be the photographer that watermarks your images. So definitely not gonna help you. All right. Aaron Edwards. Do I have any tips on shooting star trails if you don't have an intervalometer other than spending $2,000 on an EM1 Mark III? So a couple of things, Aaron. If you're talking about shooting star trails, so I'm using your words, right? If you're shooting star trails, you don't need an intervalometer. You just need to lock your shutter open, right? The whole idea is it's a time exposure where the stars move. So yeah, I mean, what I would encourage you to do is I would encourage you, since you mentioned the EM1 Mark III, I'm going to assume that you are an Olympus shooter, Aaron. Go ahead and visit the Olympus Learning Center. It's learnandsupport.olympus.com. I'm going to put the link here in the chat window, okay? You'll be able to find a ton of articles in the photography tips from Olympus visionaries like Alex McClure, Frank Smith, Peter Baumgarten, guys that do a lot of night sky shooting. And they tell you about all their settings, all their techniques. And by the way, it's worth noting with regards to your question, Aaron, that all of the Olympus, all the current and many of the previous Olympus OMD cameras have that live composite feature. So you don't need the latest EM1 Mark III to be able to do that. Okay. All right. Scrolling down some more here, and let's see. Vinay, which is the best camera to buy in 2020? Sorry, I can't mirrorless for fashion photography. Vinay, listen, I don't mean to be rude. You do realize that I am an Olympus ambassador, right? So why would you expect me to say Sony or Canon mirrorless? I do fashion portraiture and I use Olympus. The best camera to use for fashion photography in 2020, Vinay, is a camera that you know how to operate. And instead of worrying so much about the camera, worry about how to take good pictures. Get off of YouTube. Stop watching YouTube videos. Stop listening to me, because this is just me having a conversation with people. And go pick up your camera and practice and get better with the camera that you have, right? Because you can go ahead and you can buy your Canon or your Sony, and I'll introduce you to 20 people with other brands, not just me, that will run circles around you. So it's not about the camera, right? It's just not. In fact, even if you want to buy Canon or Sony, you should be a lot more interested in what lenses are you going to get. The fact of the matter is, Vinay, it is impossible to purchase a bad camera. Of all of the current brands and all of the current models that are on the market, You can't buy a bad camera. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad photographers. Just keeping it real, right? So don't be the bad photographer. Work on your photography. Worry less about the camera. Okay? All right. Next up, scrolling on down here. There's where we logged in. And where are we at? I know I saw some others come up here. Very good. And oh, actually, so John, this is a helpful little thing. So we were talking about live composite before. For Canon mirrorless, they call it exposure simulation. And then for regular photography, put it off for studio flash. So yeah, I mean, all of the brands, if you're shooting mirrorless, they all have a way to basically turn that live boost off. Okay. All right. And scrolling on down some more here. From Alvin, a follow-up on the black and white filter question. Canon offers black and white picture style filters. Would it be smart to shoot RAW plus JPEG so you have the JPEG reference for editing the RAW? No, not in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of the shooting RAW plus JPEG thing. There are photographers in specific situations and specific needs, tasks, where that's beneficial. But no, Alvin, my advice would be simply take the time to learn what the different colors are going to do to your images. You don't need those filter styles. The problem with filter styles, look, even with Olympus, I'm an Olympus ambassador. Olympus has the coolest art filters of any camera brand, period. Hands down, I'll take that argument any day, has the coolest art filters of any camera brand. I don't use them. The reason I don't use them is because they're basically mandatory presets and they're baked into your JPEG image, right? So unless you want to just, kind of do run and gun with presets like Instagram filters, which, it's okay if that's what your thing is, but that's not my thing. So for me, those filters provide me no value. So no, I don't think that learning them or using them as a reference is an ideal way to go. I think the ideal way to go is to actually take the time and learn how the colors interact. Understand part of the source of my response about the filters, and to your question, Alvin. In 8th grade, true story, gang, I have it somewhere. One of these days, I'll see if I can dig it out. In 8th grade, I won a regional science fair award for a science fair project about filters in black and white film and how filters impact black and white film and which ones and how much light they take out and all that kind of stuff. There are 2 science fairs that I won 2 years in a row. And the second one, actually, filters was the second one that I won. So actually, filters would have been 9th grade. 8th grade was the first one that I won. This one should be no surprise to any of you. It was all about depth of field. That was the first one. So yeah, I'm a big fan and actually learn how the colors interact. That's how you're really going to be able to make good use of it. Guy, thank you so much for the super chat, Guy. I appreciate it. Okay. So from PhotoMix Media, what can I do to fix the ugly yellow and orange color cast that comes through the tint mosaic glass that you find in churches and temples while using flash during the event or in post? Well, okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, PhotoMix Media. So most photographers that I know, even with my own experiences, using flash and balancing for the flash, making sure that that flash is just a little bit brighter than the ambient light coming in through those horrible windows. It's actually nice to have that crazy color in the background because you're not using that crazy color to light your subject. If you're shooting strictly ambient light in the church, then honestly, with light like that, your best bet is to go with auto white balance. It's not always going to be perfect, but it's going to get you pretty close. That would be my advice. But if you're using flash, I would want to, set my white balance for the flash, and I would want that flash to be just a tad more prominent than the ambient, and I would let that ambient go, interesting colors. It's going to make for some really, really interesting images. Coconut Rasta. That's a cool name. All right. What is the best software to use for editing? The one that you have. My use, Photoshop, all the way. I hate Lightroom with a passion. So I explain this every time, so let me be clear, right? if you have Lightroom, you're doing okay. It's fine. I had a filing system long before Lightroom came out. So for me, I didn't want to have to change my filing system, and I didn't want to have to import and export into Lightroom. The catalog concept of Lightroom is what everybody winds up complaining about, because the catalogs get too big and it bogs your computer down, right? So that's why I'm not a big Lightroom fan. Understand that developing tools in Lightroom, it's the exact same piece of software that you use for Camera Raw and Photoshop. So I'm all about Photoshop because I do lots of compositing and feature things that you can't do in Lightroom to begin with. Certainly, Coconut, depending on your budget, depending on what's available, programs like Affinity or better yet, Luminar, in my personal opinion. DxO Photolab, I think it's Photolab 3 is their latest now. They are all good Photoshop alternatives. Out of all of them, I would have to put Luminar 4 now at the top of that list. If you have no budget to work with, there are programs that are available like Darktable and GIMP. They are limited in their feature sets, but still really quite capable. So the best is really, what you have and what you can afford. At the end of the day, folks, the idea, so I had one question today about what's the best camera, and I see that person has already asked me about what's the best lens, since I said you should be worried about the lenses. And here we have a question about best software. Let me give you the most straight answer that I can give you about best. How do you determine what's the best for something? It's not a brand name. It's never a brand name, right? The best is whichever one, whether it's a camera, whether it's a lens, whether it's a piece of software, whichever one has the features and the capabilities to do the things that you want to do and need to do. That's how you determine best. And that's why you have to be really careful about just saying to someone, anyone, I don't care who it is, hey, what's the best for this? Hey, what's the best for that? I mean, think about it. Would you just basically say, what's the best car to buy? I want to buy a new car. What's the best car? Right? People with money are going to tell you something like a Ferrari. Most of us can't afford a Ferrari. So then it's probably not the best car to buy, because that's an answer that really holds no value, right? So asking somebody what's the best, I don't care who the person is, you're not going to get a good answer. Better yet, if you want me to tell you what is the best software for editing, Coconut, you got to type a lot more information. Tell me, number one, why don't you use Photoshop? And then number two, go ahead and tell me what kind of stuff do you want to do? What can't you do now with the software that you are using now, right? That's the stuff that is going to get you an answer that will help you actually figure out what is the best for you, okay? All right, going along here. Dre Steed, are we still doing the critique videos where you edit followers' images? Every now and then I am open to doing them. The challenge with that is, Dre Steed, the videos that he's referencing, if you or she, I apologize, I don't know if this is a male or female. The videos that I'm referencing, if you go to my YouTube channel and on the little magnifying glass, just type in Images Reimagined. You'll understand what we're talking about here. It's basically where I see someone's image and I realize that there's a really cool image there, but they've kind of missed a lot of opportunity in post-production because they maybe didn't understand how and what they could do in Photoshop. So I haven't done one of those in a long time. I'm actually open to doing them, and now that you say that, maybe I'll look a little bit harder through my Facebook group to see if I can find an image that I think might be worth doing. But it's not so much that I'm committed to doing them. It's more a matter of when I find an image where I feel I can really teach a lesson around it, then, I would love to do it. So, all right. And Dorkvania. Sadly, other people manage to get a lot more social media attention from my photographs by stealing them than I can. But, Dorkvania, the reason for that is not about stealing images, right? The reason you're not getting social media attention from your images is because you think that your images should get social media attention. Think about that. It's not about your images. Nobody cares. People don't follow me because of my images. They follow me because when I post an image, I teach a lesson. They follow me because when I post an image, I provide all kinds of background information, and I show behind the scenes, and I show video clips, and I teach them how to do what I did. That's why they follow me. Otherwise, there's thousands of other great photographers posting amazing images. So why follow me, right? So what that tells you, Dorfani, is that you're actually not doing all the right things with your social media. It's got nothing to do with your photography. It's about your social media, okay? Let's see here. Bob Frame, what resolution and size do you recommend for posting online? The proper size and resolution. Think about that, right? So there's no one size fits all, Bob, all right? What you do, let me switch my browser over here. You go to this website. You've probably heard it before. It's called Google. You spell it Google. Sorry, couldn't resist, right? But your question was kind of a lazy question. And what you do is you type proper image sizes for social media. And we'll do 2020, okay? And you'll notice right out of the box, so there's Twitter. Twitter's got all these different image sizes depending on where you're using the picture, right? And here's a good one. First one up. Cheat sheet. Okay, so I'm going to guess if I scroll down here. Yep, so here we go. Here's all the Facebook sizes, right? And then we scroll down a little bit more. There's like your events headers. There's your business page profile header. Here's the sizes for LinkedIn, YouTube. This one's pretty good. But now I'm going to throw you a curveball. In fact, here, I'll go ahead and I'll share this link with you guys since I'm there. All right, so there. My fingers are tired now because I had to do all that web searching that you didn't do. Just saying, right? There's no one size fits all. Don't be the photographer that uploads a full resolution photo. No. But I will tell you that for some of these images, especially for Facebook, there is value to uploading your image at double the size. So you're going to have to go do your own research and go a little bit deeper. So I'll give you an example. When I upload an image for Facebook, I don't upload it at 1200 like they recommend here. I upload it at 2400 pixels. So I would recommend that you do a little bit of research because unfortunately I can't answer it with just like one, this is the size, right? Okay. All right. So scrolling on down here. Mikhail's photography and design. What is the best approach? What is the best to approach corporations to get hired for their portrait needs? Well, Mikhail, first of all, make sure that you've got work that represents what they need, right? So how do you determine, like, I know that's kind of like an obvious thing, right? But let's take a step back from that and let's kind of deal with an obvious statement. How do we determine what is best for their needs? So we start by looking at their websites. We start if they do any particular advertising and things like that. But in today's world, it's usually going to be their website. And we want to see, well, do they have a consistent look and feel to their headshots? Maybe they have like a staff page or a team page where they've got all their employees and everybody's got these random pictures and it looks really just chaotic. Then there's an opportunity for you to go and say, hey, if we photographed all of your employees, this would all look consistent. It would really give that kind of team feel to what's being shown. So I would encourage you, start by actually looking at their marketing, look at the way they're presenting, et cetera, and then realize that if you go to their website, for instance, and they have all of their employees' photographs and they all look the same and the shots look pretty good, then they probably don't have a need right now, right? But starts with make sure you have great images to show, and those images have to look like what you're trying to sell. So if you're trying to sell corporate headshots, but all your portraits are like pretty girls outside by trees, that's not really going to convince people that you do great corporate headshots. So you need to have corporate headshots, right? And then from there, it's a matter of making sure you've got great representation on your website and simply reaching out to companies and trying to do a little bit of research. Don't just like send information to the contact form on their website, but do a little bit of research to find out who does their marketing, who's responsible for their website. One of the best things to do, depending on where you are in the world, Mikhail, and this is a worldwide website, but make sure that you are on LinkedIn, number one. And number two, if you are at a point where you're making money as a photographer, like if it is your income, it would actually be worthwhile for 1 year, pay for a premium membership to LinkedIn. The reason I say 1 year is because it's expensive. It's about $500 a year, 500 US dollars. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And then what you're going to do for that year, you are going to look up every company that is in like a 30, 40, 50 mile radius of you. In other words, your potential customers. And you are going to research who's their owner, who is their CEO, who is their chief financial officer, who is their marketing person. And you're going to build a contact database that you can reach out to. A lot of photographers I know have done it. It's much cheaper than buying mailing lists. I've done it myself, even when I started my education business and started teaching full-time and was looking for sponsors. It's a lot of how I found my early sponsors that got me started. So I'm a big fan of doing the LinkedIn. I still maintain a LinkedIn premium profile, but it's expensive, so you need to be making money. So Vinay, which lens would you recommend for fashion photography? Look, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not going to answer that question. And if anybody does answer it, I'm just going to delete their answer. You're asking all the wrong questions and you're being really very lazy. I'm sorry. I know from experience that people that are asking questions like this are not ready to be buying lenses. You need to learn how to take better pictures. Because here's the thing, Vinay. The more you learn how to take better pictures, the more you will find yourself getting frustrated because your lens won't do what you want it to do. And that's going to tell you what lenses you need. Because the fact of the matter is, Vinay, just so you know, again, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to teach you a lesson. I can open up any fashion magazine, and look through all the layouts. I'll find pictures taken with wide-angle lenses. I'll find pictures taken with portrait lenses. I'll find pictures taken with high-powered telephoto lenses. I'll find pictures taken with fisheye lenses. So there's no one answer for me to give you. If you actually did a little bit of research and stopped asking lazy questions, because it's a lazy question, I'm sorry, but it is, but actually went and looked at some magazines. Vinay, the reason why I'm being tough on you about this, so you understand, all good photography is problem solving. Asking questions like this, you're not making any attempt to solve problems because you haven't even figured out what your problems are yet. So, okay. Don Bender, any advice and or your videos you could recommend to prepare for an upcoming photo shoot? This will be your first. Well, two things, Don. I'm not sure we're going to be clear by May 30th, but man, wouldn't that be nice? And two, a photo shoot for what, man? So my first piece of advice would be, I can't give you any advice. Are you photographing food? Are you photographing a model? Are you photographing a pebble? Give me some more detail, Don. Okay? I need more detail. Let's see. Zach Gauss. When I use my Godox 8200s in the studio, do I use the flash heads or the tube heads? It's bare bulbs, not tube heads, but I know what you mean. Generally, Zach, I use the bare bulbs if the flash is going in a modifier. So if it's going to have a reflector or a beauty dish or an umbrella or a collapsible modifier of any kind, then it's going to be the bare bulb. For my rim lights, which are aiming back to my subject, just putting a little bit of rim, that's almost always the regular flash head, what's called a Fresnel head. That's Fresnel, the Fresnel head with mag mods on them for the gels. That's usually what I'm using there. So throughout the course of the studio, I use both. So, okay. Joe's Photography. Have I ever tried multi-exposure or double exposure in camera, and what did you think about it? I'll be trying. Yeah, Joe, I love it. I mean, I used to do it back in the film days, where you'd actually put your film through the camera twice, which was like really, living on the wild side. I have a shot or two on my Instagram where I did, because Olympus has a really cool in-camera multiple exposure feature here. So this shot right here is an in-camera multiple exposure, and you can read about it right there. So yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun to do. I can guarantee you that last 24 hours, there's been a ton of multiple exposures put up of the big, supermoon that happened. So, okay. Charles Swigert, why is there a long wait for approval of TOGCHAT image submissions? Because, Charles, man, I'm one person. Chill the heck out, dude. Seriously. Come on. They get there when they get there. right? Charles, you need to understand, because I know you're new to the group. There's a lot of people new to the group. Go back and watch the video, the welcome video for my group, please. Because as soon as this virus stuff is over, the group's going back to the way it used to be, right? I opened it up now to be, nice to everybody and give them a place to share and to have some fun and to follow along with my Stuck at Home challenge. That's not how the group works. So I'm sorry, but I'm one person. I'm doing my best to keep up with it. I go in and I approve images usually like twice a day, okay? So sorry if you feel it takes too long for your images to get approved, but I don't think you quite understand why my group exists. So I would encourage you to go back and watch the video. The video is very detailed, it's very thorough, and it will explain to you why you should be a member of my group and what you should be trying to get from my group. Okay? All right. So let's see here. Christian, is it possible to do tethering with an iPad Pro and an OMD camera? You could tether using the OI Share app, but not traditional tethering, Christian? No. And that's because Olympus Capture does not work on an iPad Pro yet. Maybe somewhere down the road. And I didn't say that to be like smart, like I know it's coming. No, swear to God. But as it is now, it's not something that is an option. So Joe's Photography, I guess, got a lot of good questions tonight. What's the difference between cropping an image and exporting it at a size? For example, using Lightroom, you can crop an image, but also when you export, you can tell the size to export, i.e. Dimensions. Okay, Joe, I think I know what you're talking about. So crop is basically when you're cropping, you're deciding like I want to go to a square format 1:1, or I want to go to like a 16:9 or a 4:3 or a 3:4 or a 4:5. That's all basically, formats. You're cropping the image, right? So then when you're doing the export and it allows you to do dimensions, remember, I don't use Lightroom, so I apologize, folks. Feel free, please correct me if I get this wrong. When you are giving it a size to export in Lightroom, it's basically based on that crop. I'm pretty sure that in your export dimensions, you're not changing the crop. You're simply saying, these are the dimensions based on that crop. So help me out, gang, if I got that wrong, because again, I don't use Lightroom. I don't export out of Lightroom. I'm just not a fan. So. Okay, you're in Vegas, and it's so Mikkel's Photography and Design. It's Michael, but spelled Mikkel. Okay, so Michael, sorry. Yeah, and if you're in Vegas, Michael, I mean, I would say definitely then do a LinkedIn Premium, and do it for a year. Don't sign up for LinkedIn Premium, obviously, until all this craziness is over, where there's a chance that people are going to come back and start spending money, because you are in a market that it's a good market. However, it's a market that's got a little bit of saturation for photographers, right? There's a lot of really good photographers in Vegas. So that doesn't mean, give up, right? But it means, hey, you need your presentation to be top notch. So, during this downtime in business, use that time to really practice up your game. Get some marketing pieces together. If you feel that you've got a good portfolio already, get some marketing pieces together. But then when, it comes time to, let the floodgates open again, then you want to get out there and really start researching who are the people. So let's see, Don Bender. So he asked before about suggestions for preparing for a photo shoot with that's coming out, models, retro. Don, communicate. Have ideas in advance. I mean, this is something actually, Don, I talk about this a lot, especially in TOGCHAT. We've done a lot of TOGCHATs about this. Just a couple of weeks ago, here, let me back up a second here and see if I can find the link for you. Just a few weeks ago, I did a TOGCHAT all about working with models and prep. So it sounds like you missed that one, but let me see if I can find that here. There it is. Let's talk about working with models. I'm pretty sure it was this one. So Don, I'm going to put a link here in the chat window. Check this one out. That'll give you a lot of suggestions to get you started. Okay? All right. And still scrolling down here. How am I doing? I got 10 minutes. All right. From Rainmaker, Joe, you plug Olympus quite heavily. Well, I don't plug it, but I use it. Okay, so I talk about what I use. That's fine. You started with them in the old days, OM10, OM1, etc. Have I previously been into other brands? Really? So, yeah. I was a Nikon user for 42 years. So it was Nikon essentially that basically brought me to Olympus because I was getting really frustrated. So Rainmaker, here is a link if you haven't seen that video right there about my switch and why I left Nikon and all that. So yeah, but that's it's going on. Let's see, when did I do that video? Should be like 3 years now, 4 years, 3.5 or something like that. So yeah, it's been a little while. Okay. All right. And where was I? Let's see. And Best Shots, Caitlin. Hello, Joe. Is the website Learn and Support on Get Olympus available only from the USA? I cannot access it at all from Europe. Really? You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't know. So that's a bad answer. Let me just try something here real quick. Because here's the thing. I know that I can access similar sections for other countries around the world from the United States. So I'm going to put this in here again. I'm going to give you the actual URL. Try that. And if you can't, I can tell you that most of the Olympus, they call them BCs, business centers around the world, have a similar, they don't all call it learning centers, unfortunately. They have different names. But most of them have similar sections on their websites. Unfortunately, they don't all have the same content. Like the material that's in the Olympus Learning Center that I'm sharing the link to is all from American Olympus Visionaries. But and by the way, coming up a little bit later in April, I will share more details with you guys next week. I'm going to be doing some live streams with some Olympus Visionaries from around the world. Some of them are going to be appearing on my live stream. I'm going to be appearing on some of their live streams. So you guys want to check that out if you're Olympus shooters. And don't worry, gang, we're not going to be talking about shooting with Olympus. We're going to be talking about photography, okay? Just like I always do. Even when I talk about live composite, I always tell folks and teach them how to do it without live composite, right? So, yeah, they will be photography discussions. They just happen to be photographers that I really admire. So, okay. Let's see, Rainmaker. I cannot do it without LinkedIn for my business. It is really good. I'm not sure that the market is saturated. It comes down to your work and your willingness to accept some rejection. Well, I mean, you know, it comes down to your work and the willingness to accept some rejection. That's a fact for any photographer in any genre, period. But indeed, yeah, LinkedIn is a tremendously helpful tool. So, okay. And Timber Geek confirmed here that, yes, Lightroom basically is going to, on export, resize the images based upon the dimensions, the ratios that were already set. So, okay. Alan, do you have any resources to help start learning Photoshop? I own the program, but I have no idea where to start. Well, you know, the problem that you have is there are tons of resources, okay? And so it's like, who do you follow? You know, who do you learn from? So here's my advice to you, Alan. The first thing I'm going to recommend that you do is you find one instructor. And you stick with that one instructor until you have mastered Photoshop before you start looking at other instructors. Here's the reason why. Photoshop is such a powerful program that honestly, any technique that you can imagine in Photoshop, there's at least 10 ways to do it, literally. And none of them is right or wrong. It's all about what you prefer. So if you are a beginner, the person who I recommend is a young man who is in India. I just put the link to his website in the chat there. It's Pix Imperfect. His name is Unmesh Dinda. Okay. Let me just put there is his name. He is an outstanding Photoshop educator, breaks it down, makes it incredibly simple to understand, and his teaching is free. Can't top that. Obviously, some of the other probably best known Photoshop educators out there, obviously, the godfather of Photoshop education is Mr. Scott Kelby. There are people like Aaron Nace who do Phlearn, that's Phlearn, and they would probably be, the top of my list as far as, Alani. Gosh, I said Alan. I'm so sorry, Alani. My apologies. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, by all means, check them all out, but pick one. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself getting tremendously confused, because it's no different than if you were to watch my Stuck-at-Home Photography Challenge videos from the last few weeks. I have been showing kind of my workflow. My workflow is absolutely 100% the best for me. Not necessarily going to be the best for you. Definitely not the way that you should ultimately learn Photoshop, right? So yeah, Unmesh is awesome. He breaks things down, really simply. I will tell you, depending upon your disposable income, he has a Patreon group where he does a lot of really, really good hands-on education with people. So that might also be something for you to consider in that regard. But Unmesh is absolutely awesome. So I highly recommend him. Okay. All right, gang. So did I get everybody? I got time for maybe like one more question here. If you guys want to sneak it in, let's see here. Actually, here's a question. I'll be honest. I purposely skipped this question. So let me go ahead and finish with this. Elmer, any YouTube channel with all composition tips? Because I still can't understand some of the composition and angle techniques. My answer is no. There really isn't, so don't worry. I'm not lying to you. And then my other part of the answer is, even if there was, Elmer, don't go there. Don't watch that. Okay, I'm going to give you one composition tip. In fact, here, let me find the link to this video. This is one of my early videos that I did. This is a let's see if I can actually find it. It didn't come up with my search there. There it is. Okay. This video is called The Most Important Composition Rule for Photographers. Whoops, that's not the link that we want. Let me open this up. My apologies here. I'll get you this. Watch this video, Elmer, and learn this rule and learn to approach Photoshop this way. And you don't need all those rules. All of those rules that you're asking me about, there will be a lot of photographers who are very wrong, and they're going to say to you, you have to learn those rules so that you know how to break those rules. That is the biggest bunch of BS that has ever been fed anybody, because, Elmer, that's not how our brains work. Full disclosure, I talk about this a lot. My wife is a cognitive psychologist. So she studies and researches how we process information and learn how the brain operates. The bottom line is, once you know those rules, you're in the box. Everything you're doing, you're fighting to get outside the box. And the key word there is fighting. The less you know about those rules, Elmer, the better your photography can be. So this video that I just shared the link to, it's called Forget the Rule of Thirds. It's going to give you a rule of thumb, a guideline. Follow that guideline, and I promise you can ignore all the other rules. It'll work, okay? All right, gang. So, really good night. A lot of questions tonight. This is great. It's 7 o'clock. I'm actually finishing like almost on time here. Wow. So, for those of you that celebrate Easter, have a great Easter. For all of you, please remember, we're in this together, gang. So let's do it backwards. Social distancing, super important. It really is. Please don't think that you are not at risk for all this. So please stay safe. Hopefully all of you maintain your health. And I got some more stuff coming up later this week. Hopefully you'll consider joining my Facebook group, taking part at the Stuck at Home Photography Challenge. If you've been tagging along with that, I'll be posting my images for today in about an hour. And of course, we'll be back next week, right? So in the meantime, gang, whatever you do, pick up that camera and please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TOGCHAT. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.